without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Gerard. He will be giving a keynote on ChatGPT and AI.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Yesterday, I had a little bit of a stress situation, a little crisis, when I realized that the keynote yesterday was exactly around ChatGPT. And maybe if you have ever done a talk for a conference, you probably are worried that someone else is speaking about exactly the same topic as you do. But it's a little bit more stressful when it's the keynote, okay? No worries, I got some slides. I was in the plateau creating these slides yesterday, it's on the fly. I hope you will enjoy this talk. And mainly the conversation I think that I want to open is probably this question that you can find in social media, and you may wonder if you are a little bit too focused in your day job. Is like, okay, what is happening? So will ChatGPT take your job? I'll leave it open. I'm not going to answer. I'm going to leave it to you to just marinate this idea, like how we got here. So I'm Gerard Sans. I'm not French or of French origin. I'm originally from Barcelona, and I'm traveling from the UK to give this talk. I'm a developer evangelist, which takes me quite a long time to explain to my family and friends. I hope you know what that means. I go to a lot of events and conferences. I focus around web and cloud, and recently, last year, I started looking into Web3 and AI. I'm an international speaker, and I've been doing this for quite a while. You can see here in this map, I've been all over the place. And this will be my 182 talk. Thank you, thank you. My brother over there. So let's start with this question. What if an AI could do your job? And usually you will get this reaction. And I think from engineers, they will be like, okay, what are you talking about? What exactly are you talking about? And I guess from your faces, I can tell that you are also wondering, like, okay, what is this? Okay, let's do a follow-up question. When do you think that may happen? Do you think it can happen in 10 years? I mean, this is a serious question now. Like, you think it's going to happen in 50 years? I mean, let's see how some hands, like 50 years, 20 years, 10 years. Oh, is that good? Or you mean like never? Okay, so it's more or less like a tough crowd for this talk. Well, let's see the opinion of Elon Musk. No? He's a reference. So Elon Musk, last year, this is from last year, not even knowing all that happened later. Last year was quite busy on AI, and somehow he comes out and says, okay, it's going to happen, and it's going to happen in the next 5 years. I mean, okay, he says a lot of stuff anyway. So what is ChatGPT? I think the best thing that we can do as engineers is like, okay, let's see what's happening, and this is more or less my reaction. 2 years ago was my first contact with GPT was released, and people start playing with it. Like, this is now 3 years ago. And I was completely astonished, like how it can understand English language. And as a software engineer, I know that it's really complex problem. And I was wondering how it got so good. And then I leave it on the side. I got into other things. And I remember not last summer, but the one before, I decided, okay, I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna do some research. You can do it, Gerard. It was also Web3 at the time, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do blockchain and AI. Why not? And I started preparing a workshop, and I used that research to understand how this technology works. So of course, time passes and there's a release, there's ChatGPT, it's everywhere, people is trying crazy things, it's ridiculous sometimes when you give a technology to people that are not engineers. I mean, this is people from the street that will try anything to break it as well. And if we look at the company that created ChatGPT and also all of the models behind, we can see why Elon Musk is kind of jumping into the conversation. He was part of the founders, and besides him, there's also Sam Altman and Greg Brockman. They have an AI background. Today, we have few APIs. If you want to go and try them, these are all of the APIs. These are all public, but the one for code, I'm not sure why the code one is still in beta, so you need to register. But you can create any kind of text, you can write emails, you can write blog posts. I mean, you have seen all these many times. A very interesting thing is when they started playing with code, with the codex model. And that was quite surprising when it was creating the code. Then later on, they added the feature of refactoring code. And you're thinking, okay, so if it can create code and it can refactor code, what is left to do for developers? And of course, as any technology, this is only the beginning. As it gets better, it will be able to do more and more things. Another area that has been quite popular is art and images, and this also opened another can of worms there. I guess that happened last year. Maybe this year will be for developers, and we will get into a lot of discussions if this technology can code or it cannot code, or if it will take your job or not. And this is more or less what I'm trying to share my findings here. So this is a little bit of the evolution. The first models appear in 2020, and these are what are called unsupervised learning models. Somehow when they do this exercise, they realize that these models can code. And mainly this is because it was trained with a web crawl. And if you look into a web crawl, it's mainly all of the files around a website, which includes a lot of HTML, a lot of JavaScript, etc. They realized that it could code HTML and JavaScript, and they got the idea that maybe they could partner with Microsoft, take a snapshot of GitHub, maybe not with the consent of everyone, but they took 54 million repositories, and they train it, and they created what it's called Codex today. And now when you use ChatGPT, it has the original Codex, which can do all of these wonders. This is more recently, and they decided to change the approach and move from the unsupervised learning to what is reinforcement learning with human feedback. And this is the generation which is called GPT 3.5, and also what created at the end ChatGPT. As you can see, this is just from last year, so there has been a lot of movement in this area. What we will also see soon, this year, is the release of yet another model, which is GPT-4, and we can expect also big things from 2023. So this is a little bit of an idea of what is happening. If we focus on GPT models, the most important stage for these models is the training. if you think the way we learn, it usually depends on the quality of our materials that we use for learning. And that makes a lot of sense. So what they decide to use, they decided to use Reddit, they decided to use a web crawl, they decided to use some data that is probably not the best available. So how this works? This is a very easy process, and this is one of the first things that I discovered. So you have a neural network, you have exercise, you have a goal. In this case, you want to identify if the image is from a cat or a dog. And the neural network is faced with many pictures, and then depending on the success on that guess, it's gonna do some corrections on that original neural network. The more exercises like this it does, the more it learns, and at some point the model gets the end of the training, and then it's released for public use. How GPT models are trained in unsupervised learning is basically like this. So here we can see a Wikipedia article, and on the right side we can see the exercise that GPT is doing or trying to do, which is basically guessing the next word. I mean, if you imagine all of the features that these models show, it's really surprising to see how easy is the training. So we can see an article about Christopher Columbus, ChatGPT in the middle. It gets the first token, which is Christopher, and it tries to guess the next word, which in this case was is. That is not the next word, because the next word is Columbus. So it keeps going this game until it hits a success. Every time that we do this guess, and depending on the result, as I was explaining before, it will go back and try to change the model to get better and better results over the training. And that's literally how it works. There's nothing else. What is happening internally is that it's creating what it's called a hyperdimensional graph, and this is taking all the tokens and creating these relations, which in some cases are abstractions, some cases will be related to language, and they are context-based. So these will change depending on the context of these different documents, and these are open for the model depending on the success of the final results. GPT models have 2,288 dimensions, and these are all of the different dimensions that they can learn. So this is the full capacity for these models. If we look at the details of the training data set, we can see that most of it is a common crawl. Then we have also a collection of different books, which is where these models get all these fantasy stories and get all these songs and all this funny content. Then we also have Reddit. That will be the web text tool. And Reddit, if you don't know Reddit, this is mainly content created by users and any links that these users share. So these are part of the training. And then finally, to give it a little bit of more educated opinions, it uses Wikipedia, which is probably not the Encyclopedia Britannica. Some warnings. I mean, if you have been playing with these models, you know that these can be biased, sometimes can be non-factual, and surprisingly enough, they are also inaccurate when you try to do arithmetics, for example. Some funny things. They just did the training that I show you, which it doesn't involve maybe any expectations around other things that are not language. By the way, it's only trying to guess the next word. But one thing that was really mysterious is that it learned more than 100 languages when the main information was only in English. This is still This is still a mystery. Of course, it knows French. This is created by ChatGPT, by the way. And this is very good. Last year, when I was doing my research, I find out, and it's been another year since OpenAI announced that they have no idea. I mean, I don't know if you can read this. Basically, they are saying that when they released the Instruct GPT models earlier last year, they don't know how this model could speak in more than 100 languages. Some of them include Japanese. So we don't know all of the capabilities. We really don't know. I mean, not even the creators know. I ask AI experts, they don't know. One simple question is, okay, so where, in these models, where is the language capability? Where is the English? Can you tell me how it's able to create English, understand and translate English? Nobody knows. It's just inside the model. They are very practical, the AI experts. As an engineer, I wonder why we are using these models which are not focused to one single task. Well, the answer is mainly because this is just an experiment. Believe it or not, this is not the final product. This is just a prototype that even Sam Altman mentioned that they should never release it to the public. And there are obvious reasons for not releasing these kind of models. When I look at Codex, when they learn from these 54 million GitHub projects, it learned all of these languages, but some of them are a little bit strange because it learned how to use the shell. You would expect the code features, but maybe not the shell. It also learned, of course, it doesn't discriminate between languages. We discriminate languages, but it learned PHP. No problem. And also SQL, which is quite bizarre because it can take a free text, which means unstructured text. You can explain, okay, this is like a napkin node. This is my schema, the tables. Can you run this query? And it will write a correct SQL query. I mean, I'm from an older generation. Maybe the younger generations, you don't appreciate this. But I was almost about to cry. I was like, imagine if I had this technology like 20 years ago. We are living exciting times, and most of the features are very much unused because nobody really knows about these models. You probably think that these models are a toy, and it's true, they are a toy. But they can do a lot of things that can help you in your day-to-day. And there's a ChatGPT evangelist in the room, or maybe more than one. Okay, can you stand up so people can recognize you and they can come to you and ask you questions? Oh, it's too embarrassing. Okay, we are developers after all. So it can do all of these things. It can document your code. It can do code refactor. So you give it your code. Ask it, can you add a new cache to this code? Can you do some improvement in the performance of this data access? It will do it. This week I did a 2-day workshop of full stack GraphQL. I just give it a GraphQL schema from nowhere. I didn't warm up the conversation. I was just, boom, schema. Then the student was like, okay, I need to do an update, which is a mutation for the people who know. And ChatGPT, without any struggle, just output the perfect mutation for an update. And we also asked for the rest to all the CRUD operations it did. It's very good at data manipulation and text manipulation. It can also answer questions. So you can, for example, if you want to learn regular expressions, somehow it also learns regular expressions. It can also do language translations, which is also some miracle, because who would do a translation from Java to JavaScript? That's a crime, no, in some countries. And then it can also follow instructions. You can give it like a sequence of instructions and it will follow the instructions. I mean, it understands English. So let's look at the results. We have GitHub Copilot, which is a product. It's not fantasy. It's not a free product, which is kind of a demo like ChatGPT. This is a commercial product. And these are the results. And this is a codex, which is also part of the capabilities of ChatGPT. Almost no one uses these capabilities. But these are the feedback from 1 million users and more than 400 organizations. They mostly use GitHub Copilot for more than 46% of their code, and they feel that they are 55% faster. I ask on social media how people is looking at this, and most of the people see that they want to use AI to make their job easier. And this would be my recommendation for you. I did a workshop. I went to Milan for AI Factory event, and this was a group that were not developers, and I just put them on an exercise, which was, I showed them this demo, which is a demo for front-end developers, and it's basically linking the scrolling with the movement of that object. So I just show you this, and I ask you, use ChatGPT to build this solution. It basically starts a dialogue, which is going through different iterations, and it created an intersection observer solution using also request animation frame. Of course, I was guiding the process. This is not a simple implementation, but if you have the knowledge, you can bring that knowledge to the solution. There's also the new Ving, and what I want to show you is, I don't want to miss the opportunity to show you how big are these models, and I'm going to use as a reference the diameter of the Earth, and show physical real objects, comparing it to the size of these models. This will give you like a reference of why AI experts don't know what is inside these models. It's because they are humongous. And the new GPT-4. I think even if we all go and then try to explore so much surface, it will take us probably our lifetimes, and we will not get to the end of it. So it's quite impressive. This is the reaction from some developers. So how I see the future? I see the future with a lot of, unfortunately, no-code and low-code solutions. That means that a lot more people will have access to software. You probably know some of these solutions, and they are pretty much popular. We will see more. And somehow we will also see a rise on voice and prompt-guided development. Going more into the future, we have a revolution in the cooking. We have now a cognitive revolution, which is AI assistants, much more in the form of ChatGPT, but ChatGPT is a general model. We will see specific models that will do a better job. Elon Musk is working in robots. I don't know if you have seen that on the news. And at some point, we will get to the singularity. So that's going to be very interesting. What would you build with AI? Because the AI revolution is here. Okay. Thank you for listening. Hope I have inspired you to go and try and push ChatGPT to the limit. Thank you for listening.